Hello, welcome to Politics HQ on News Central Television. And these are the major headlines for today. Planned strike will cripple the country. Senate appeals to Nigerian Labour Congress. Nigerian Senate screens President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's ministerial nominees. President Tinubu approves provision of buses for Nigerian students. And outside of Nigeria, Senegal opposition leader Sonko formally charged with insurrection. And Niger military junta detains more government ministers. Today on Politics HQ, we will discuss the just concluded speech by Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu with regards to the economy and the removal of the subsidy. And I have two gentlemen with me live in the studio. I have Dr. Jide Johnson, a political affairs analyst, and also Mr. Segun, a political affairs analyst. So one welcome to you, gentlemen, and thanks for joining me on Politics HQ.
It's a pleasure to be with you.
Always a pleasure.
Now, Mr. President spent about 20 minutes addressing Nigerians with regards to the subsidy and the palliative measures and what the government is doing to ease the pain of the people. He actually acknowledged the suffering of the masses. I would like to start with you, Dr. Johnson. What's your thorough assessment of Mr. President's speech? Did he hit home? And what resonated with you with regards to the speech?
These were the same lines, the same story I had while I was in the universities in the 90s. Same story Abacha gave, free buses, free transportation, release of buses too. Every time subsidy has been removed in my lifetime, these are same measures that government will say they will take to address and ameliorate the problem of the people that they created out of their lack of due diligence and monitoring of the responsibility we have given to them. We put government in place to ensure that our lives are better and things are made easier for us.
And then that's what they promised.
Yeah, and then when government is now giving us the excuses of non-state actors becoming bigger than them and the elites, select few, reaping the nation, it shows that it's failure on their part that they've not been able to do what we have elected them to do. So as far as I'm concerned, it's just beyond what the president said. Everything he has said has been said by his aides in one of their statements they've released over time. So for me, it was just what we have read in statement is what the president just captured in his speech. So
you think it's
not exciting. It's not exciting to me.
Now, I'd like to come to Mr. Segun, knowing where we're coming from, 8 years of a Buhari presidency, and there's a picture that kind of depicts his entire presidency where he was lounging with a toothpick. He never used to, I remember during the COVID-19, Nigerians had to beg him to address the nation. We're seeing a precedent that seems to be responsive to the yearnings of the people in addressing the nation in due time. That, look, I acknowledge your sufferings. This is a painful route to take. If there was another route, I would have taken that route. Just exercise some patience, and we've put in measures in place to ameliorate the sufferings of the masses. What's your assessment of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's speech tonight?
Well, like my brother has just said, this is a lot of empty platitudes. Very big on rhetoric, very big on big language, using the language that we use at beer parlors to talk about national issues. You know, and it's a bit disturbing to hear the president of the country say some of these things. Very, very small on details.
Well, he did say, look, I'm going to speak in plain language with the masses.
Yes.
You have to acknowledge that.
So when so the first thing, I guess, let me backtrack. Okay. I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that this president is talking. That's a good thing. You know, you can't see it any other way. Like you said, you know, we had President Buhari for 8 years, and I literally can count on the fingers of these two hands, how many times he actually came forward outside of the National Day addresses and maybe the May Day addresses. So in 2 months since this president has been in offices, I think this is the second time, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a good thing. But what you say to people is just as important, if not more important. What I see the president do, what I've seen him just do, is to play to the gallery and try to play to sentiments and try to show that he's talking, he cares, because there's a crisis looming. And I think he's trying to prevent it. He's trying to prevent the protests that the Nigeria Labour Congress is planning along with civil society. He's probably trying to assuage frayed nerves. But these words, you know, the things that he's saying, as I listen, as somebody that is aware and knowledgeable, I understand economics thoroughly. It's what I do for a living. I listened to that and I couldn't help but get angry. It was annoying because the president was saying things that that just vain political arguments would
you didn't
normally
get the
bandy about.
how
The
we're going to
details
see- yes.
with regards to what is going on was totally missing. So, for example, if you say that
I mean,
there's
he
a
said we've
powerful
saved
cabal,
$1 trillion naira.
it's not true.
Okay.
It's not true. That's a lie. With all due respect to the president, that's not true. What has happened, he was
June
referring to the
till-
FAC allocation in June and July. All that happened there was the devaluation, the effect of the devaluation of the naira. The fact that there was a certain volume of dollars that comes to the government, and when you convert that at
At a
460,
devalued level, it goes up.
you know, so when you're now
Without
converting at
factoring-
800,
yes.
there's nothing else that happened. We didn't save nothing. All that we saw was increased naira because the value of the naira had gone down relative to the dollar. So the president just looked Nigerians in the face and lied. Will we eventually get a saving from the subsidy removal? Maybe. I don't know, because even the subsidy, that's why I'm talking about the details. We don't understand what's going on with this subsidy thing, you know. We don't know the details. The NNPC says one thing today and then says another thing tomorrow. So I think the president needs to be really, if he wants to be honest, he really needs to be honest and present the information to us. Who are this cabal? Who, you know, in the last 6 years, for example, there hasn't been any importation from marketers. NNPC has imported everything by itself using a consortium of some marketers with international refineries. The
You know,
NNPC has been responsible.
yeah.
So what cabal are we talking about?
No,
So the
yes.
president needs to be more honest with Nigerians.
Now, let's get into the details. I'd like to bring Dr. Johnson into the conversation. Segun does disagree. He said he doesn't agree with most of the things, and the president is just playing to the gallery. But Nigerians operate in a very low trust environment, and we're very forgiving. And I'm sure that speech would hit home with people looking at where we're coming from, a Buhari administration. The president said he acknowledged the suffering of the people, and there's no other route. There's nothing he could have done. This subsidy had to go. And we also need to acknowledge the fact that the major presidential candidates said they were going to remove subsidies. So he promised CNG buses, buses for students of higher education, and all of that. All this, what might sound beautiful to the ordinary person on the street, like this is the sacrifice I'm making for a better Nigeria. But like Segun said, the devil is in the detail. So what could he have done differently, looking at our present day realities? What were your expectations?
If you recall, the Petroleum Trust Fund was established by Abacha's administration, which the former president headed. Buses were provided for labor, buses were provided for students. Where are those buses? When you come up with
Even
a program
hostels, yeah.
that are not sustainable, are you getting my point? Yeah, if you provide the buses this year, you're going to provide it next year. Now, when you come up with unsustainable policies as alternative to removal of subsidy, if you say you are removing subsidy on one hand and you are providing buses on the other hand, are you not giving subsidy? You see, as far as Nigerians are concerned, like you pointed out, give us the details. What we have learned from government over the years is them providing us with the details. What was the value of subsidy we incurred last year? What was the value 6 years ago? What is the value that we'll have incurred this year? We don't even know the amount of crude we produce daily. So if you don't have a record of of your production, how then do you know the record of your income? So a lot of that, when it comes to, I have said it over time. While I was a young chap, in the 70s, subsidy was removed. I was born in 1960, tail end of 1960. Now, so for those of us that are in my generation, we have witnessed removal, nothing less than 20 times in our lifetime. Now, if you are removing something up to 20 times, then something is wrong somewhere. And the president said something which is still very instructive to me on this subsidy matter. Are these people ghosts? Are they bigger than the states?
Yes.
Can they not be identified? Now, if select few, the powerful, because he said it in his speech, that sovereignty does not belong to the power of money. That sovereignty belongs to the power, belongs to the people, and that power resides with the people. So we, the Nigerian people, want to know those that have made this nation dry. When you are open with Nigeria with respect to those that have made this nation dry, then Nigeria will come to terms with the reality, the current realities that we are facing. Look, the president talked about the buses. He also talked about 75 companies we assessed. Which 75 companies? What template have you put in place? Was this discussion, I'm coming, people don't understand some basic things. Now, by constitutionally, the president is meant to come up with the economic policy. He will correct me as an economist. I'm a journalist. But constitutionally, the president is expected to come up with this policy with his Federal Executive Council. Absolutely. That's the man they check the Constitution. Absolutely. Now, is the Federal Executive Council in place? Is the Federal Executive Council part and parcel of this decision-making process?
So it's beyond an executive order.
It's just beyond an executive order is a lazy approach to governance. That's a fact. In democracy, an executive order is a lazy approach to governance, because in governance, you come with your policies, you approach the National Assembly, you legislate on those matters, then it becomes law, an act of the parliament, which is binding on anybody. It needs a repeal for you, but another president can overturn an executive order. So, look, our interest is not to criticize the president. Our interest is to make things work. Every Nigerian wants this country to work. This is the giant of Africa.
So you'd have loved some more transparency and the details of the
How are you going to,
regime.
who are the 75 companies? How did they come about with the 1 billion? 75 companies will be selected across Nigeria and you give them 1 billion. Are you sure it's not going to be the same set of people that have been in government since 1999, or the beneficiaries of those that have benefited from the cookie jar, or they are not those powerful people that are in the oil and gas sector that are making money from the subsidy, that are also going to benefit from this scheme. That's why Nigerians are skeptical about this.
Now, Mr. Segun Sopitan, the federal government, I mean, based on the arrangement of the country and the constitution, gets the lion's share of revenue, then distributes to different federation units, the local government and the state governments. And by so, they also get the lion's share of criticism. It's just automatic. So we have different units, the local government and the states. The president said in his speech that he's put up programs to reduce multiple taxations and executive orders to, you know, provide buffers and to stop multiple taxation. Where do the local government and state governments come in now? Because the idea is that from the savings they make from subsidy, more money will be allocated to the local government and the state governments. What should be their responsibility? And are you happy with what Mr. President said in, you know, this carrying them along, because they're closer to the people?
I'm not happy at all. And there's something he said that I think we need to look at very thoroughly. And I've been saying this since this president took office. Why is he in a hurry? What's the rush? It's been 2 months. And in 2 months, you've reeled out so many earth-shattering
shock therapy
policies, policies that are turning the entire economy into an upheaval without proper, thorough, rigorous thinking. It's obvious that there is no intellectual rigor in all of the things that the president is rolling out. It's very clear. I can give you the example of the so-called food emergency and food security thing. You know, it was obvious that there was no rigor. It was obvious that this document was put together very quickly by somebody, probably overnight. I could have done that document in 1 hour. You know, you don't run a country that way, much less a country that is 200 million.
So he put the cart before the horse.
The cart is consistently dragging the horse vigorously, and it's failing, obviously, because it cannot work, right? So when you talk about multiple taxation, I wonder what it's talking about, because I've looked at the various policies that they've rolled out, in this last 2 months. How is the VAT direct a cleaning up of multiple taxation? You're actually creating an additional layer. Already, the people in the marketplaces, the market woman and the market man, they're suffering from taxation from the local government level, the state level, and maybe to a certain degree, depending on how big they are, the federal level, right? But at least for sure, that they're suffering taxation, or paying taxes to the local governments. Now the federal government now says they want to charge VAT directly from these market people. That's multiple taxation. So I've heard the president talk about this elimination of multiple taxation, and I just say again, this is just rhetoric. Yeah. Because the reality of the policies that we're rolling out, we have higher excise duties. We've got VAT on diesel that's just been introduced. We've got the green tax. There's so many new taxes that the president has either just implemented or is adopting from President Buhari's administration. So when he says we are doing everything to eliminate multiple taxation, it's just another lie. I'm sorry, with all due respect, the reality is totally different from what the president just said. So we need this president to be more honest with Nigerians. We can't play to the gallery. He's using words. I think the president somehow thinks that this is some sort of a game. It's human lives we're talking about. So he's using words.
Consequences.
There are severe, dire consequences. People are literally dying. You saw what happened in Adamawa State yesterday. This is desperation of the people, right? So the president is using words and expressions that are, nice to throw around and bandy. Sorry, sir. It's no longer a game.
When the president
it's the life of people that we're talking about now.
The pronoun we.
Yeah.
We, in what context? When you use we, is the first person plural. Now, we, when you talk about the we, the president is just the head of the executive, and we have advocated this. There is a need to be in place your cabinet, because you don't run the administration alone. And then when you talk about the we, it talks about other organs of government, like the legislature. Now, you saw what the legislature, we've witnessed the sittings of the legislature. We've seen their sitting. We've seen that they are just being economical in not trying to offend the presidency. You see that they are at variance.
They rather offend the people with that.
So they are at variance with what it took them almost 30 minutes to correct the impression. Let the poor breathe. Let the poor breathe. If your intentions are clear, you don't need to clarify your statement or the rest of it. So when he uses the word we, who are the we behind this policy? As far as Nigerians are concerned, and as far as the Constitution are concerned, Constitution of Nigeria is concerned, it is the Federal Executive Council, and that's not in place. And it's clear.
But it has this team of advisors.
Look, the teams of advisors, the Constitution gives them power to appoint advisors, but the Constitution is specific with respect to the minister. Who is in charge? Is it the advisor that are in charge of the agencies and departments of government, or the minister? The truth must be told. You see, this is how Buhari started 8 years ago, when it took him eternity for him to form his cabinet. Now, because some of these policies in the Federal Executive Council, a lot of rigor will have gone into it, a lot of debate will have gone into it, and then in the midst of debate, you get good ideas. Exactly. You must subject every idea to a debate.
And that's what Mr. Sopitan said, that why the hurry? Now, let's get back to a point you made earlier about Mr. President, 75 billion for 75 manufacturing enterprises. He also talked about nano enterprises that will get 50,000. And Mr. President seems to use March of 2024 as a benchmark. So there was a plan to give 8,000 Nigerians, 8,000 naira to multidimensional poor Nigerians. I guess the president read the room and that plan was jettisoned. So this seems to be a more inclusive plan rather than just giving handouts. You give them loans with favorable repayment plans, and you cover the manufacturing sector to stimulate the economy. You still talk about SMEs and then nano enterprises that get 50,000. What do you make of that policy?
50,000 down so that an average person can understand. 50,000, I'm a barber. I have a barbering business. Then I have to use light. And I have to buy fuel at 560 per liter. And I use 5 liters.
In Lagos?
Yeah, 560 per liter. And I use 5 liters in a day. How many days would the 50,000 last? Based on current realities. You see, like Mr. Sopitan said, the president is high on rhetorics and less on substance. And it's more or less like they still thought that we're in campaign season. Now, this is real governance. The reality of it is that how many business can you sustain with 50,000 naira? 1. 2. How many manufacturing?
I mean, that's why it said nano.
Now, I mean, that's it. I'm just saying, how many manufacturing business can you sustain with 1 billion naira? 1 billion. 1 billion. Now, for them to pay their staff salary and rest and all overhead, in view of the exchange rate and what is 1 billion? Then, even that the president did not mention, you know, we are talking offset there. Did not even mention the denomination, whether it's naira or it's not. It's just a 75 billion. It's just figures. So just like he said, probably somebody just sat down somewhere and he just wrote and he came up with the idea. And it was because of lack of details in that matter, he didn't put naira or dollar value on the money.
I mean, the advisors that Mr. President has, there are quite some big names, you know, known technocrats and professionals on that list. You must have consulted them. Are you being too harsh on Mr. President? Why don't we wait till March of 2024? Give him the benefit of doubt.
For his cabinet to be in place, like he said.
Look, the ministers, right? A minister is the chief executive officer of a ministry. That ministry has a permanent secretary who is the civil service head of that ministry. He's got departmental directors in different functional areas and operational areas. My goodness. Each one of those directors are responsible for a part of a plan. You know, you can't just say that an advisor is just one human being. It's like saying, Segun Sopitan, because I'm a consultant. Yeah, I'm a financial consultant. I can come up with documents, but I can't do it alone. What I will come up with will be totally different from what I come up with sitting in a room locked up with 20 other people of similar intellectual capacity as I am, as myself. You know, the quality of that document will be completely different. So what we are seeing now is the president is so much in a hurry. And I think the reasons are there, but, you know, that's politics. I'm not even going to go into it. He's so much in a hurry to make an impression that he is running us aground. I have said this repeatedly on every single forum I have had an opportunity to speak on. Mr. President, slow down. There is no rush. Slow down, appoint your ministers, let them go through a thorough vetting process, put them together in a room, have a retreat, plan, you know, lay out your vision of what you want the country to look like in 4 years' time. Tell them what parts they will play. Tell them to come up with a plan. Then come to Nigerians in 6 months' time and say, here is where we're going. So by that token, the subsidy removal should not have happened yet. What was the rush?
Was it planned to happen, or just or Nigerians took advantage?
I have seen the document. I've seen the policy advisory document.
Yes.
Right? I've seen the policy advisory document of this president that was put together before the elections and immediately after. And I tell you something, subsidy was supposed to have been removed after the first 100 days. I've seen that document. There's a timeline. Yes. So there are certain activities that should have happened that he didn't go through at all, that he just made a pronouncement on his first day in office. That
Nigerians the marketers took advantage.
No. Look, he's the president of the country. When you say something as a president, then people will take it, because there are policy pronouncements that go along with it.
I mean, even the Reserve Bank governors.
Exactly. A CBN governor can't talk anyhow. Yes. You make one small pronouncement, your currency scatters, right? So I think that the president really needs to take it easy, slow down, allow himself the benefit of the brains that are in the room. There are people, when I say in the room figuratively, you know, he has access to people. You know, use them. Come up with something that is adequate to move a country as big as Nigeria.
Okay, we're quickly running out of time. I just want to take Dr. Johnson on this. Two questions here. Mr. President did talk about agriculture, that he has released 200,000 metric tons of grains to, stabilize the price of food. People need to eat to stay alive, and studies have said that Nigerian households spend quite a substantial amount of their income on food, and also an increase in the national minimum wage. We have about 2 minutes to wrap up, so if you could just pack it a lot in.
It's good, but provide daily updates, just like you had for your COVID, which how many metric tons is going to Lagos State, is going to Ogun State, is going to which local government. And you see, what we want from government is for government to work, is transparency. If you are releasing this should not be released through the front door and it goes back to the back door. Every policies of government has been subjected to round tripping. You see, the government will release it on paper, but in reality, people won't have access to it. Remember traders' money. Oh, yes. Remember the palliative.
Aborowa.
Remember also all different types of money that was released. So as far as we are concerned, want government to be transparent. If you are releasing this, provide details so that some people don't make a miss out of it.
Well,
your final say, Mr. Sopitan.
Look, I can't say it enough. Mr. President, please slow down. Take your time. We're not saying you have all the time in the world, but you are going too fast and you will run out aground. So Mr. President should take his time, appoint his cabinet, put good quality people together, and then come up with well thought through plans and policies for this country. And my final word, Mr. President should not, I thought he was going to come out today to say he was, reversing the subsidy removal. I mean, I knew that wasn't likely to happen, but really, on a very serious note, that's what should happen. Reverse the subsidy thing, removal thing, and put a plan together that Nigerians can buy into. Then, when you are removing the subsidy, everybody will celebrate. It will be clear because those things would have kicked in. Right now, you put the cart before the horse, and everybody's suffering for it.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. We have to get back to work, like Mr. President said, at 7:20. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Dr. Jide Johnson and Mr. Segun. I do appreciate your insights and contribution to the program. And that's it. Politics HQ today. My guests have been Mr. Segun and also Dr. Jide Johnson, a political analyst. We've been looking at the president's speech to Nigeria, addressing the state of the economy and the effects of the subsidy removal. I am Gbenga Aborowa. See you next time on Politics HQ. Bye-bye.